Welcome to drted.online. As a lifelong vegetarian and a lifestyle medicine advocate, there's one question I get asked more than really any other. That question is this: Dr. Ted, what do you do for protein? Well, the answer to this question is really incredibly simple. But to get there, we will need to first consider two fundamental sub-questions. First, what is the human protein requirement, or the RDA, or recommended daily allowance for protein? And next we need to ask, what foods provide that level of protein? In this introductory video, we're going to answer the first question about the human protein requirement. And then in the very next video, we will detail which foods provide adequate protein for optimum human health. Stay tuned. The answer may surprise you. More generally, in this video series, we are going to be constantly looking at what science shows us about nutrition. We're going to discover that what everybody knows about nutrition is often not based on science, but sadly often comes from media, rumor, and marketing campaigns. What you hear in the media is often not science-based, but is in fact what I call nutritional nonsense. Additionally, in this series of videos on health, you will frequently hear me make reference to a plant-based diet, or more precisely, the whole food plant-based philosophy of nutrition. We'll look into this concept more in future talks, but for now let's say that whole food means not refined. We're okay with sweet fruit, but not with refined fruit sugar. You see, one could eat foods with lots of corn oil and, say, beet sugar, and while that would be technically plant-based, it would not be whole food plant-based, nor would it be healthy. Eating oily, fried, or sugar-sweetened foods and still calling it plant-based would be one example of what I call nutritional nonsense. Instead, you should eat the actual corn and the actual beets, whole food. So, to return to the question of the day, Dr. Ted, what do you do for protein? This very question assumes the following implications. It assumes that plants are somehow deficient in protein, and therefore we must do something extra. We must pay particular attention to our protein intake. Otherwise, we will no doubt be protein deficient. I hope to show you that these assumptions are not concepts based upon science, but are the result instead, again, of those marketing campaigns and hearsay. They are in fact one of the most glaring examples in our world today of nutritional nonsense. As a real-world illustration of nutritional nonsense, allow me to share two experiences that I've had. First, at a family Thanksgiving dinner before COVID, a relative of mine in his 30s, who is a CPA, announced that for his New Year's resolution, he was going to strive to eat a balanced diet. Now, this caught my attention. Intrigued, I asked him what he meant by a balanced diet. He replied that he was aiming to eat 30% protein, 30% fat, and 30% carbohydrates. Now I was really fascinated as to where he got the idea that 30% was the right number. His reply to me was, shall I say, telling. He began by saying, well, everyone knows that we all need more protein. When the proof of a point begins with "everyone knows," to me this is always a red flag. Is what everyone knows based upon fact or rumor or someone's well-placed lie? Was my relative correctly informed? Is 30% an accurate dietary target for protein? Let's expand the scope of this question a bit by moving to my second experience. Around that same Thanksgiving time, I had the opportunity to give a scientific lecture to 80 of my board-certified emergency medicine colleagues at a noon CME conference at my hospital, where my topic was protein and the whole food plant-based philosophy of nutrition. Before my lecture, I sent my colleagues a pre-lecture survey where I asked them just one simple question. I asked them to tell me, from their current knowledge base, what do they think would be an ideal target for protein? My 100% board-certified physician colleagues gave me, of course, actually 80 different replies, but when I averaged their replies, they felt that a healthy target for protein was 38%. So, of course, some of them thought a good target would be more than 38% and some less, but on average, they felt 38% was ideal. So, we have a highly educated, professional millennial accountant, good with numbers, mind you, who thinks that 30% protein in his diet is a good goal. And we have 80 highly trained, board-certified physicians who think 38% is a healthy goal. We seem to perhaps be developing a bit of an authoritative consensus here, aren't we? But is this accurate? Well, I hope to convince you that, sadly, they are all very much wrong. They are all, sadly, parroting what I call nutritional nonsense, that they have all learned, as we shall see in future videos, not from science, not from their textbooks, not from their medical school, but from rather The View and Joe Rogan magazines and TV ads. What do the actual experts in the field of nutrition science say? This is our question. What is the true target for protein if we actually wish to follow the science? Well, I'm going to show you what multiple authorities say. And please note, they all agree. First, we'll quote the World Health Organization, who in 2010 published their analysis of protein and amino acid requirements in human nutrition. But we will also reference the position paper of the American Dietetic Association, as well as the Dietitians of Canada, and please note this one in particular, this position paper also includes the American College of Sports Medicine. All four of these international expert panels find scientifically that when they measure human protein requirement, that the RDA, or recommended daily allowance for protein in the human diet, is not 38%, as my physician colleagues thought. Not 30%, as many, many young professionals have been led to believe. But in fact, the RDA is just 10%. Now, if you find this hard to believe, if you know you've heard that 10% is not enough, please be patient. In future videos, I will show you precisely how the math on protein works. Or perhaps you may object, Dr. Ted, I'm an athlete. Don't I need more protein than the sedentary? Well, we'll talk about this more, but the quick answer is that while an athlete who is burning more calories than a non-athlete does need more food, yet the proportion of protein in the food does not need to go up. Certainly you need more protein, you need more vitamin C, you need more carbohydrates, you need more fiber, you need more of everything. Again, we'll detail this part of the discussion in an upcoming video, but for now, that's the quick answer. Okay, so perhaps I don't need 30% protein, but perhaps it makes me feel good. I like it. Is there any harm in consuming more than 10% protein? Well, sadly, high protein, low carb diets are harmful. Let me tell you, this has been well studied. It's not a question that's still undetermined. We will show you in future videos the scientific data that demonstrates that you cannot consume unnaturally high levels of animal protein in particular without risk. Okay, so let's accept for now that the RDA is 10%. How can I be sure I'm getting at least 10% high-quality protein in my diet, particularly if I am on a plant-based diet? We now have the answer to our first part of our original question about protein. We've learned that the human requirement for protein is 10%. I want to clarify what this means and how you can use this idea of 10% in your day-to-day activities. If you consider all the types of food that you eat in a given day, if you count the calories from all those foods and beverages, let's say you eat 2,000 calories total. Well, what we are saying that is of those 2,000 total calories, 10% or 200 calories should come from protein. Now, does protein come only from the chicken and fish in the food shown above? Absolutely not. Which brings up another common fallacy that I run into all the time. When I order up a nice plate of pasta primavera at a restaurant, the waiter will often stop and ask, "Would you like any protein with that?" Oh my, I want to stop them right there and give them a little curbside lecture about the protein that comes in the peas and in the broccoli and in the pasta itself, but generally I don't. I just answer, no thank you. But this is another great example of nutritional nonsense. The idea that there are protein foods and non-protein foods. Essentially all whole foods come with protein. The question is, how much do we need, which we've already determined, and next, does the food I have chosen contain adequate amounts of protein? So, back to the original question about protein, we've answered the question about how much protein we need. From all the calories we choose to consume on a daily basis, 10% of those calories should be from protein. But now we turn to the second part of the question. How can you be sure you are getting at least 10% high-quality protein in your diet? Which foods meet this criteria, particularly if you are on a plant-based diet? Well, I'm going to answer this part of the question in the very next video. Stay tuned because the answer may surprise you, and the answer is very easy to manage. You'll discover that you won't need to read labels or carry a calculator to the grocery store. You just need to understand some very simple truths. If you click on the YouTube subscribe button below this screen, as well as on the notify bell button, you will be alerted when the next video posts, where we will answer, once and for all, the perennial question of what do people on a plant-based diet do for protein? In this and subsequent videos, we may be asking you to think differently. You may learn new ideas that run counter to what you have heard from everyone else. But in the end, I hope you will come to avoid much of the nutritional nonsense that surrounds us today. My name is Dr. Ted, and I thank you for listening.